Good afternoon and welcome to the second in our series of 3 webinars exploring the findings of the new report, Solving Missouri's Child Care Puzzle. If you could advance the slide. We are looking today at the opportunity of shared services across this industry of our small and home-based childcare businesses. And today we are joined by 3 great presenters that do this work on the ground. And again, this report is produced by the New Growth Women's Business Center. I am Patty Cantrell, the founding director. New Growth Women's Business Center is part of New Growth, a community development corporation in West Central Missouri. And we do business assistance for small farm and non-farm businesses. We provide microfinancing loans under $50,000 to those businesses and credit building assistance. As well as transit support. New Growth Rural Transit is a program that's growing across our West Central Missouri region. New Growth Women's Business Center approached this report because we know we really need to address the business side of this very important industry and the economic development, community development opportunities around it. We were supported by University of Missouri Extension in that report, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, Sarah Kennedy, who will tell you about her work.
Hi, I'm Sarah Kennedy. I am a community development field specialist at MU Extension. I have a special focus on early childhood impact. The university saw that childcare and housing were an issue in every county of the state. And so they brought me on to connect the dots across MU Extension in terms of finding out what programs and resources we have available, but then also looking at the university system and seeing what programs and resources are there as well, and then connecting communities to those resources as appropriate. And so we partnered with New Growth Women's Business Center to produce this report on shared services as one of the many solutions to childcare crisis in the state of Missouri.
Next slide, please. So today we're going to be focusing on the approach that the report presents, and that we call it shared services, and that's like many businesses in the world and industries, there's a lot of need for back office, central office support to our small and home-based businesses. So we're going to be exploring how that works today. Last week, we talked about the business of childcare and the nuances around why this sort of support, this infrastructure to help them do their job well is very needed. Louise Stoney is the co-founder of Opportunities Exchange. That's a national leader in helping to develop shared service alliances and look at the financial management of childcare businesses. Monique Reynolds leads a shared service alliance in Georgia, and she is the vice president of ECE Business Support Services at the organization Quality Care for Children. Tasha Gorley also leads a statewide shared services alliance in Texas, and she works with Avance, and that's an organization that works across the state on developing communities and families. And her shared service alliance focuses on those in-home child care providers. So Louise is going to start us off with an overview and help us work into a panel discussion where we're going to explore these programs and your questions, which you can put into the Q&A box, and we'll watch for that. So I'm handing it over to Louise now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patty. Great. Next slide. So let's go to the next slide right away. So why are we doing this? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Well, basically, directing, owning, operating a childcare program is an overwhelming job. There are so many different tasks to stay on top of. And at Opportunities Exchange, we think about these tasks in 2 big buckets. Pedagogical leadership, which are all those things that you have to know in order to do good teaching and learning, right? And that's a whole body of knowledge. And then business leadership, which is all the things you need to know and do in order to make sure that you're financially sustainable and then you're bringing in enough money. All of these require intensive work, record keeping, lots of details. And sadly, in most cases in the United States, it all falls on the shoulder of one person. It's an overwhelming job, burnout is high, and it's really hard to be very good at all of these things. Next slide. So the point of shared services is to take the weight off the shoulders of providers and to really think about what can we scale by harnessing the power of technology, by sharing staff. And a lot of, or almost all of that falls in the administrative side of things, right? There are things that we can actually scale administratively. You see some of them named in this box here, and we're going to talk a little bit more deeply about that as we go along. Next slide. So one of the most important things for you to know about shared services is that it is not a cookie cutter approach. It is not some model to be followed with fidelity. It's a framework, and it's going to vary from community to community based on the needs of providers or the skills of the hub or the resources in the community. That said, what we've learned at Opportunities Exchange is that there are several buckets of work that get the greatest impact for providers. And you see these on the right-hand side of the screen. So human resources, really helping providers access health insurance, often through the affordable, in fact, almost exclusively through the Affordable Care Act. Telehealth, retirement plans, staff recruitment, onboarding. Those are all things that you actually can scale effectively, and they make a big difference for providers. Physical supports is another thing you could scale really well. And that's, billing, accounting, payroll, tax prep. And you'll see some real concrete examples of that in this presentation. And then thirdly, business leadership, which is really helping providers to better understand their own businesses, to understand their unit costs, track key metrics. So again, that's something that we've seen really effectively scaled. Next slide. So as I said, how you do this varies from place to place, but there are key steps that are pretty consistent across the board. The first one is embracing technology, and you see bullets underneath this in terms of how, and we're going to go into more detail in this presentation about how you see this happening in some examples. And the second one is really thinking about scaling and supporting key services. Purchasing, operation, HR. So those are, again, two sort of big buckets of work that shared service alliances are working on. Next slide. One of the most important things is that effective shared services are really responsive to providers, and they're delivering their services in tiers with intensity increasing as you go deeper. So tier 1 is often access to tools and resources. And is not requiring a huge amount of knowledge or work on the part of the provider. Tier 2 is when you begin to introduce business automation, working with providers to help them leverage them, giving them business coaching, really deepening the use of automation. And 3 is shared back offices. And I'm going to talk more specifically about each one of these tiers. Next slide. So tier 1, good news, is already available in Missouri. Child Care Aware of Missouri has a website called Show Me Resources, which offers access to some HR supports, telehealth plans, teledoc plans, a mental health, a bunch of other services that you can scale and purchase. Acquire for Hire, tools to help with hiring, a job board, personal shopper to help with price discounts, templates, a whole bunch of templates and toolkits so there's a whole bunch of resources that are available right now in tier 1 in Missouri. Next slide. Tier 2 is when you begin to get involved in technology. And I want to walk right into this issue because when I was planning this PowerPoint, I was told, don't say technology because there was such a bad experience with it in Missouri. And I understand that this year you had a very difficult time with some technology that was rolled out by the state. I want you to understand that at Opportunities Exchange, when we talk about technology, we're talking about technology that was built for providers, that puts providers in the driver's seat, and it is designed to empower providers to lead. That is Child Care Management Software, or CCMS for short. You may know these tools by their brand names: ProCare, Brightwheel, Playground. Alliance Core, Lilio. There are lots of them, many, many good products. A good childcare management software will include all of the things you see on this screen. It's essentially a way to support a childcare provider in running their business and to help them streamline everything that has to happen, and to do much of it by collecting this information through transactions that happen on a daily basis, rather than having to enter all of this data separately. So they're really, really powerful tools, and they make a huge difference for providers. Next slide. Now, many of you may say to me, "Oh no, our providers can't do it. They don't have computers. They're real uncomfortable with computers." Here's the cool thing. Modern technology and these modern childcare management software tools are designed to, many of them, be driven off a cell phone, a smartphone. And most providers have smartphones. Honestly, what we're learning at Opportunities Exchange is that if providers can do Facebook, they can learn how to do this. So yes, there's a somewhat of a learning curve, but these tools are designed to be very, very provider friendly, and they're designed to understand the business of childcare. Next slide. So why are we so strong on technology? Because we have seen technology help providers earn more money. Big time. Makes a very big difference. Childcare programs often leave money on the table. Again, this is not intentional. Remember the woman who's juggling all these things, right? How in the world? You've got to keep track of so many details. It's really easy for you to not do a bill correctly, or to forget this, or to lose hours that a child attended and you didn't bill. There's so many details. And there's not a big margin for error in childcare programs. We want you to collect every dollar that you can collect. Childcare management software, by automating all of these things, making tuition collection automatic based on kids checking in and out, it automatically generates a bill. You set up a payroll deduction, you set up deductions, ACH transfers from bank accounts or credit cards, it automatically collects the fees. So there are so many ways. It automatically generates forms that you can use for tax preparation and record keeping. It makes a huge difference in your business. Next slide. So in case you don't believe me, I'm going to show you some data. And this data comes from Georgia, Quality Care for Children, from Monique's program. And this is just from 1 year of one cohort of programs. They increased the weekly revenue of these programs by 39%. They eliminated their bad debt. They increased their enrollment by 20%. They help them tap funding from third-party funders like the Small Business Administration or stabilization grants. So they made a very, very big difference in the bottom line for these programs. And a major way, the primary way they did that was by making sure that every single provider used childcare management software and got the support they needed to do it. I'll let Monique really fill you in on the stories, but I wanted to give you the punchline. Next slide. Now, as I said, for tiers, Quality Care for Children does have tiers in their Family Childcare Network. They look a little different than what I said, but again, it's different in every place. Next slide. But what's really unique about Quality Care for Children is that they have a back office, and that back office is optional. Not every provider needs to join, but after providers have had some experience working with QCC and they start using childcare management software, some of them realize, you know what, I would really like deeper help in doing this. And so as you see on the left-hand side, these are if you join the back office, and it is, you pay a fee, you pay $300 a month. They manage your CCMS, they track your metrics, they help monitor your budget, they help with internal office systems, they give you regular progress reports. But here's the punchline. In 2024, they tallied up how much providers earned additional money simply by correcting errors in subsidy billing. $72,000 their cohort earned collectively just by collecting errors in subsidy billing. So you see what I mean by leaving money on the table? So the bottom line is this more than pays for itself for providers that choose to join. Next slide. You're also going to hear from Avance, which has a very different clientele, very different approach, very different state. They work largely with Latino providers in home-based childcare. They do have, instead of tiers, they call them phases, but they still break things down. And they start with digital literacy. So they're really helping programs get comfortable with technology, but they also give them a free year's worth of childcare management software and business training and coaching. So they're jumping right in and saying, hey, this is a tool that's going to make a difference. Let's start you out right, and let's start you out by using it. And then over time, they get deeper and deeper training. And again, you'll hear more of that from Tosha. Next slide. Okay, so I've sort of given you the basic framework, right, of shared services. And now I want to leave you with some bigger thinking, because at Opportunities Exchange, we're really thinking big, and we're really thinking about system reform. So you can go to the next slide. One of the challenges, and I think this is directly related to what many of you have experienced in Missouri this past year, is that here we are working with providers, trying to get them to use childcare management software, right? And the providers say to us, give me a break. Why should I learn another technology system when I've still got to enter data in all these other state systems? And many of them have a separate website I have to log into and learn that passcode and enter all that data. Or some of them don't even have a computer at all, and I have to send in a paper and pencil. This is way time consuming, and I just can't deal with it. And the last thing I want is to learn another technology. So basically, what's happening is that the modern systems, next slide, what we're doing is really helping states to understand that a lot of the data they need in these systems is actually held inside this childcare management software. So what you see on this slide is examples of some of the kind of reporting data that states are looking for. And actually, we've mapped that against what is held in the childcare management software to really help states realize, oh, wait a minute, instead of having a provider have to enter that data in a separate system, you could actually pull that data from the childcare management software. What that does is really put the providers in the driving seat. Next slide. So I want to give you an example of what's happening in one of these states. So we've been working with Iowa for several years. And here they've made a major investment in helping all providers get childcare management software. They basically put out an RFP. They selected 2 childcare management software vendors. They happened to select Brightwheel and Playground. And any provider that chooses that software gets it for free. And what the state did in a matter of months was to build a data bridge between that childcare management software and their subsidy billing. And so the way it works in Iowa is if you are a provider that's using Playground, you check every child in and out every day and using Playground, whether they're subsidy, not subsidy, doesn't matter. At the end of the pay period, a screen pops up saying, these are the children that are going to be paid for by the state. Would you look at this and make sure this information is correct? The provider verifies, yes, these children were here. That's their right attendance data. Clicks a button, it sends the data to the state. The state then pays the provider electronically based on that information. But even better, the state sends that data back through the CCMS, and it automatically populates Playground, each child's file. So Johnny got paid, Johnny's childcare cost $300. 250 of it was paid by the state. You now know you have to collect 50 from mom. Susie's childcare was paid $175. You have to collect 75. So each child's file, the data is already there. So the reconciliation of what is owed is right in front of the provider. This has been the providers are thrilled. It's been really successful. So that's been step one, is building this data bridge, right? However, Iowa has much bigger dreams. And so while they built that data bridge right away, they're working on this big, what they call an operational data store, which is a big file cabinet in the sky that is going to pull data out of the childcare management software and share it with different state agencies. And we'll be able to push data as well, back and forth. The first step in this work has been with Parent Search. So what they're doing right now is that this ODS is sharing data on childcare vacancies, so that parents can have real-time data when they search for childcare. And so the state has a better data on where they have vacant slots, where they don't, what age groups, such like that. So that's step number one. So the bottom line, next slide, is that states like Iowa are really thinking big, and they're understanding that rather than that, if they build software at the state level, they need to strategically link that software to software that providers are using. They're listening deeply to providers. They're trying to build their systems so that it links and makes sense of and pulls from them. And at the same time, they're supporting business coaching for providers so they earn more money. And another piece right down here, which is still very new for them, they're starting to crosswalk the documentation that they require for licensing, quality rating, food program, nurse health. What are all that papers that we're having providers send to us? How much of that stuff is already in a CCMS? And could we just go to the CCMS and check for it rather than having them fill out paperwork? So you see the kind of big transformation that's happening. Next slide. So I wanted to just leave you with this big idea, which is, we're talking about shared service alliances, we're talking about supporting businesses, but we're also really talking about helping the early care and education sector really embrace technology and move into a new world where we can fundamentally change many things about how services are delivered. So with that, I've sort of given you this big picture. Now I'm going to let Monique and Tasha talk to you about what this feels like on the ground.
That's right. Thank you, Louise, for that overview. That's really helpful. And, your presentation showed us kind of the range of supports from a shared services alliance and also where it can go with the state and bringing it all together. We'd like to hear from, let's go with Monique first, and then Tasha, just a little overview of your programs direct from you.
Hey everyone. Oh my God. We have this marvelous Monday, and I'm always excited when I have an opportunity to be with Louise. Our program in Georgia is simple. We provide business support services to childcare providers throughout the state. And the way that we do that is comprehensive. We want to be hands-on with the providers, walking them every step of the way to make sure that they are profitable and sustainable. And as Louise mentioned, our biggest pathway to success is getting our childcare providers automated within 1 month of their service coming to us. And when that happens, we have the amazing results that she showed, increasing their enrollment 24%, totally eliminating their bad debt within 4 weeks, and increasing their revenue by looking at their individual businesses to increase that by 34%. Any and every childcare provider that works with us, we guarantee that they will be profitable and sustainable. So I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to answering all the questions.
Thank you, Monique. Tasha.
Hi. I'm like Monique said, excited too. This is something that we at Avance are really excited to take on the support primarily for family child care homes in Texas. We recognize that there is a gap in support with these folks and, building their business acumen. We do focus on that primarily. We support them in their pedagogical side too, but putting that business owner hat on is something that many of our providers are not, they're not used to saying, I am a business owner. It goes beyond loving the children. We all do. We all want the best. We all want high quality care. But what we're really trying to do is have them look at themselves as business owners and increase their revenue. And that is going to give them that high quality care that they're looking for and that parents are looking for as well. So excited to have the conversation today with everyone.
Thank you. And I'll follow that up with maybe if you could both kind of give us a more example of what that pathway to success looks like for your clients. What does that look for the businesses that become members of your Shared Services Alliance?
So I love Shared Service Alliance because in this industry, they never had support. It was more so focus on the children, focus on the classroom, focus on the home. You have to have this equipment, you have to have this. And because they're servant leaders, they lead that way. And so they met those expectations, but there was nothing set up to support the business owner, the provider. So to have such a wonderful Shared Service Alliance that's going across our nation now, heavily due to COVID, is profound because now we can say and people can take this industry seriously. So our pathway forward is really laying that out. Providers are inundated with so much information and resources that they're torn. Which way do I go? Who do I call? And so to have a shared alliance in your state, it shows them this is the agency that I need to call. This is who I trust because they have all of the information that I need in order to be sustainable within my state. And I think that is the difference when you're looking with 5 or 6 different agencies, you don't know where to go to. We're able to really help them and bridge that gap and connect the dots to those other agencies, but they call us first and we're able to be on that front line cheerleader resource for providers going that path. And again, it's like really, really saying this is your path versus here's all these different things that you can do. Most people, we don't like that. I mean, it's great to have options, but when you have too many options, you get lost in the shuffle. So we want to streamline those processes. And our Bible book to do that is going by the Iron Triangle model. We focus on those 3 key areas for success: enrollment, bad debt, and revenue covers costs per child.
Could you explain those real quick? Because we haven't introduced that to our audience. And bad debt, you mean that they are actually collecting tuition, not, there's nobody that's
Right.
owing them money.
So the Iron Triangle is from Louise Stoney. And so that is what our whole basis for our Shared Service Alliance is built on. So the first area is that enrollment. We want our providers to be full in all of their classrooms or in their homes, full. And so that looks different and that takes some time to build. So when they don't have that, we have to strategically switch. That business coaching comes into how are we going to market your program? How does that look? You're not in competition with anything because your home expenses is different from this person's home expenses. Your center operation cost is different. So we look at that to build the enrollment. And we want to have everyone pay their tuition and their fees in full and on time. And this is tricky because most providers already have a manual, already have a process of they should, your tuition is due on Friday. The problem is they weren't using that business hat. So someone comes in, I'm really short this week. Can I pay you on Friday? And leading with that servant's heart, we're like, oh yeah, no problem. And then we're shuffling in the background like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to pay this? So we're, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Instead of saying, I'm so sorry. No, in order for me to operate this high quality program, I need you to pay me in full on time for all of those fees so I can pay my bills. I can have that livelihood that I rightfully deserve. And then that third component is revenue covers costs per child. Most providers that we work with, and we've worked with over 1,000 or so, they don't even know, like, why did I pick $125 a week? Where did you get that number from? Oh, well, so-and-so down the street was charging that. No, you have to know your business. You have to know per child cost. What does it take for you to operate a high quality program to include that teacher cost, the material cost, the operating cost, the lights, all of that? And so when you look at those 3 categories, instantly you can do it really quickly within a month's time frame of an assessment, and that's their path to get there and knock out all of the other noise. And that's what they get confused on. Focus on these 3 different metrics to make that huge impact that will lead to success.
Thank you, Monique. Do you have anything to add on that, Louise? I mean, because I think this is so costly for people, but realizing that the business is going to be there if they can make money, right? We want them to be there, and so we have to focus on this. Tasha, do you have any pathway to success?
Yeah, Monique, absolutely. Everything you said is spot on with what we do. Also, I would add we have the layer of networking that I think in the past has been a missing piece for especially home care providers, and large operation centers as well. The advocacy, our program operators want change, they want to see change, they know change is needed, but don't know how to do it, don't know where to go, don't know how. And one voice is great, but having a collective voice of providers together is going to make more of an impact. So we focus a lot of our efforts on building that network statewide. Regionally, we have monthly gatherings. We talk about what needs to be happening as a group, and we're like leading the charge, hopefully for some change. So that networking piece is a big deal.
And as far as getting engaged in your networks, is that a free thing, or how do people do that? And when do costs come in, and how do you cover those costs?
Well, we're working on that. Our sustainability piece too is something that, I think every alliance that, Monique's got the pricing points that she has for her supports. And, but for us, the networking is, if they're in the alliance, they're in the network. We have several opportunities monthly where our providers can come together collectively, and professional learning opportunities. We're just discussing what obstacles each one has. Some are similar, and they can talk through those things together. And a lot of times, working in silos is a big deal that we all are trying to break through. And, you get through your day to day, and you don't really think about how am I going to reach out to someone? Well, we create those opportunities for everybody. But like I said before, it's beyond being in your city together. We create opportunities statewide for providers to talk and, work through different situations that they all have. It's been very successful so far. So
Great. And Louise shared the whole importance of automation and how valuable that is. And we talked about tiers, where at one level, just access to cost-saving resources like volume discount purchasing and back human resources. A lot of those things, you can provide those resources, but then the next level is where you get them using an automated system and really drill down on those metrics that Monique was explaining. Can you talk about your process of getting people to that point? Both of you. Monique, you want to start?
Yeah, so for us, we're very strict in terms of our alliance. When you come into the network, you have to be automated within 1 month. And so we have intense trainings, one-on-one. We will even come to their location, or they can come to our group setting to make sure that they have mastered those skills. And that's the biggest hurdle. It's like with anything unknown, you have that anxiety, you have that fear of, I don't know how to do it, and this is going to be difficult. And it's really not. So we tell them it's not difficult. So let's stop there. Let's be positive. Let's go into this experience to show you you're actually going to save money. You're going to save time. And so when we get them over that hurdle very quickly, they're like, oh my God, I should have been doing this years ago. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And they're in tears because what have taken, like payroll, it has taken hours upon hours. And then you have to stop because you have to ride the bus, or you have to, drive the bus, you have to be in the kitchen, all these different things. Now you're doing payroll within minutes. And so you're collecting, you can actually see, and you don't even have to be the bad guy. When that person comes into your facility and they haven't paid you, a pop-up comes up. Hey, you need to see management because you've not made a payment. So it's a relief. it's a relief to see the automation system work, and then to just a click of a button, how many teachers have been trained for that year? You can see it. What do you need to do? Any and everything, that big screen that Louise showed in terms of how automation works, I swear by it. I feel like every child care person needs to have automation because it takes them to another level. Now, we do have a tier where there are just people, for whatever reason, it's so difficult to get automated. That's fine, but you still have to do best business practices. So we don't allow anyone to stay in our network who's not doing that. So if you're doing paper and pen, you still have to show us that you're collecting your fees in full and on time. But the push is to save you time and money and to move towards automation, because that's where we're going. And we all play an integral part in the growth of childcare in our industry. So the need for the economy to grow, we have to go through automation. You can't go anywhere without having automation.
Absolutely, I agree. With the family childcare homes, it's been a big hump to get over the digital literacy piece, and also the buy-in for them to really understand that even though they only have 12 children, 6 children, however many it is, that pen and paper manual iron triangle metrics tools, it takes a lot of time. And if you add that up, that's money wasted also, because they're taking time out of their lives to do those things. Like Monique said, those tools, just because they don't want to use the CCMS, we get that. Not everybody has to. And if you don't, it doesn't mean you're not high quality. It just, you're making things harder for yourself, right? So, but we've developed with Louise's team some really good tools that they use. And for our reporting purposes, we need to see and make sure that these providers have the tools that they need to run their businesses. And it's amazing how many don't. So we're really building them from the ground up with basics, budgeting, like Monique said, setting your fees correctly, all of those things. So it's really going back to the basics and then building from there with the hopes of full automation.
Yeah. I just want to add to that, for those that are listening and for whatever, background that you're coming to, we also have to look at partnerships in terms of banks, in terms of people that have capital investments, that we need you to the table with this industry. You're not going to have a lot of childcare providers that are coming to the table that have all of their finances in order, like a lot of people do. They didn't learn that. And so their expertise is in taking care of children, making sure that they have high quality. So we're going into a new era where we're teaching these business acronyms and making sure that they are strong and empowered business owners. So it's going to look different. And we need everyone to understand that and recognize that as our economy continues to grow, and give grace. So when they're coming into your organizations and are asking for resources, don't assume that everyone is at the same level or even have that education. But once they know that, they know exactly what to do, and they can deliver just like they're delivering on high quality care.
Louise, you're muted.
I was going to jump in with a few stories too from a number of years ago when we were first. Almost everything that we know at Opportunities Exchange, we've learned from the School of Hard Knocks. We've learned from actually doing it, trying it, watching it succeed or fail. And anyway, early on, I remember we were working with a group of providers from Liberty City, Miami, very poor area, and an area where you would think technology would not make a big difference. And I distinctly remember this provider, within 1 month of instituting a childcare management software, she went from 12 families owing her money to 2 families.
Yeah.
In 1 month, just by giving them an invoice, just by having pop-ups. So I think we make assumptions about families and about communities and about people that we've certainly learned at Opportunities Exchange are not necessarily true. Another couple of interesting stories. Recently, I interviewed a bunch of providers for an issue brief that I wrote for Iowa about their data bridge. And I interviewed some family childcare providers who said to me, I just did this because the state asked me to do it and I wanted to be a good guy, but I really didn't think it was going to help me because I only have like 6 kids, 8 kids. boy, was I wrong. Even with only 6 or 8 kids, this has made my life so much better. And I just didn't know that until I stepped in the water and started doing it. And then the last story I want to say, which is sort of it, which is another interesting twist, is that for many providers, some of the early wins come from the non-financial side of this. Like, remember that fan of the child care management software, all the things it can do. Well, there's a family engagement piece where you can send pictures and videos to families. You can get them to send you documents, like they can take a picture of a form you need and send it to you. It's so great in terms of communicating with families. And there are many providers that's the big win for them. They just really like having that ability to communicate more directly. And it comes along with a bunch of other things that are also helpful to them.
Thank you both, all of you. And it reminds me, I want to go back, Louise, she said, Shared Services Alliance is a framework, right? There's no one thing. And we are talking about states and organizations that have pulled this framework together to address the really urgent needs of these small and home-based businesses, whether you're a small center or a big center or a home-based childcare. And that is a part of our economy that does not have this support right now. And it's a fundamental importance to our other businesses and our economy. And we've seen research in Missouri where Missouri loses out, and I have this data right here, on $1.3 billion in economic activity because we're not addressing this sector of our economy. So the framework we're talking about here is a way that we can organize our resources as a state, as communities, to do it in a way that makes sense for the businesses and even on up to the state agencies and different public sources of money that flow into it. So I just wanted to remind everybody that that's what we're talking about with the Shared Service Alliance. And it starts with access to, just really basic resources, human healthcare and different assistance to businesses, but also then this automation piece, which a lot of people are scared of, but we're hearing that it really makes a huge difference. And so I wanted to also just hear from you all about, the back office. When people are really working this, they're starting to use the resources, they're starting to look at their numbers. Where can this go with the back office, even more shared staff and state support?
So I love our back office support service, and it came from us listening. So our providers went through the program and they're like, hey, I got it. I understand. And we appreciate that, but I'm still so busy. Is there any way you all could do this? And so we're like, well, yeah. And I always try to find ways to say yes. And so we just started doing back office support. We go into, and that's why we choose certain childcare management systems. There are so many, as Louise stated, that are great. We pick the ones that we can actually go into the enterprise module so that we can see. We have our own login codes where we can go in and help providers. We can flag those things, and it takes off the huge burden. And for $300 a month, you have to think about it, $75 a week. You may have the intention on going in, your assistant director, to do these type of administrative things, and you get caught up in lifing at childcare. In the childcare sector, you have to fill in for a classroom. Your teacher didn't show, and right now is a huge shortage for teachers. So to take that burden off, we are their extension, and we're so happy. When I tell you, when we're recouping money and we're putting money back into their pockets because they didn't have the time to go and check, we are on fire celebrating like, oh my God, did you look in your account? You have this that we put in there for you. So it's really, really, really needed. I think that's where it's going to go to as well. And because we've done so well with our back office support, initially it was grant funded. Now it's self-sufficient because we have so many providers that literally need this service, and it just takes off a burden. And we do all their records for them. And that's another piece, even with the accounting, we meet with our CPAs. We make sure that they know the industry and are not just telling our providers anything. So I'm an advocate for back office support.
That's great. And that's that third level. And people, it sounds like they worked up to it and they're like, I'm ready, I need this. And now it's making a really big difference.
Yes. And so there has been a couple of providers that have reached out to us and was like, okay, do I have to go through the program? I just want to sign up for this. And I know that there may be states that do that, but it's really important, going back to what I mentioned. We aren't so much concerned that, oh yeah, we can do it, but I'm more concerned that you understand, as a childcare business owner, your business. So we don't just want to come in and do it, which we can. We also want you to understand the reason why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and you should question us, and not just so rely on people that they just tell you anything and you're not checking the data, your results, your money to really know what's going on in your business. So we emphasize that throughout the process. So they have to go through our program in order to be eligible to participate in our back office support.
Anything from you, Tasha, on that, getting to that next layer? I know you're relatively new too, but.
Yeah, so yeah, we're in our, what, 2.5 years now with the program, and that is absolutely, I think, where we're looking at going. But like Monique said, it's the providers' buy-in and their understanding of what's happening. So we're not doing it for them. Rather, they know and they can ask us the questions. They can come to us with data. They should be wanting to further their business, not us doing it for them. So that's a next step for this program, and we're excited to get there, and it will get there. So but yeah, as far as back office goes, that's where we're headed.
Patty, I'd love to ask Tasha, if it's okay, a question very specific to her population. So you primarily work with Latina families, right? And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think one of the things we hear a lot at Opportunities Exchange is, oh, my providers can't do this. English is the second language. And they're just, like they can't. And we say, well, we're not sure that we certainly have not experienced that. And we think it's an approach. Like, how do you bring technology to people for whom English is the second language? So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we offer everything in English and Spanish. The platform we use is Playground. It's English and Spanish. They have support people in their back office that are Spanish speaking. It makes everything really fluid. We don't really have an issue as far as, and because we focus on that population, we're intentional with finding the supports and doing referrals out to other agencies or to other organizations that if we aren't doing it, we know who does, and we can send them to the right people. But yeah, the language barrier, we make it a point to make that not be a barrier for us. And we're very intentional about that.
And the other thing, I've actually done some sort of more academic research into this issue. And if you look at the success and the survival of businesses that are new Americans or that are BIPOC businesses, access to technology is a huge differentiator. Like, when you can help those businesses harness the power of technology, their ability to succeed is way higher. So I think we need to understand that we're holding people back when we're not helping them to harness the power of technology and really move into the 21st century.
Yeah, one thing that Avance is, I say we pride ourselves on this, is we've got several different programs throughout Texas, New Mexico, and California also, but our providers start out in another program, Quality Childcare Matters, and in that program they have access to and are given technology, a tablet. They're taught basic digital literacy there and basic business acumen there. So before they even come into the Alliance, we know that they have an understanding, a level of understanding, and they have the tools that they need to be successful. So we're not setting them up for failure. We're not asking them to do something that is completely out of the realm. We're building on another program, and it's a layered approach, and it's worked really well. And so again, 2.5 years in, and we're seeing a lot of success, and it's exciting to be able to offer this kind of support where it wasn't offered before.
And you all, I'd like to just, with a couple minutes here, ask you all for any last notes on this idea of shared services, how we can work smarter, not harder with our money and childcare and help people out that way. Do you have any last thoughts that for the next steps we can take here, even take action in Missouri?
So I definitely feel for all of us. Well, I'll speak for Georgia. I mean, we're following Iowa. They're already doing it. And so I think the work smarter, not harder is looking at states and people and organizations that are doing the work and are innovative and they're ahead of us and trying to, set up your structure areas to go that way. Because if you're looking small and just what are we going to do this year, you're going to miss so many opportunities to grow. And so that automation piece, connecting the dots with state agencies where it goes filters in through the automation system, that's ideal. You get real-time data and that information to come. So we want to be just like Iowa. We love our state and we love the things that we're doing in Georgia. But to me, that is the pathway forward, and to get communities, organizations involved and to really advocate to state legislators, to local legislators, and let them know, to your mayors, that childcare is important. Our economy will not continue to grow. We won't have people going to work if we don't have high quality, affordable care. So we cannot ignore this industry, and we have to rally behind and make sure we're supporting it. And that could be, hey, maybe you're gonna sponsor laptops and tablets for a next cohort, or maybe that looks like you're gonna pay for the automation system. But we have to work together for the better good of our community.
Thank you.
Agree. And I'll add that I think that Iowa, Missouri too, from what it sounds like, are ahead of the game as far as Texas. We didn't organize, I think, all of the agencies to really understand who everyone is first that's doing the alliances and what services and support they're each offering. So there's a lot of overlapping, a lot of doing the same thing, which is causing provider fatigue. Really, we're asking the same questions. We're coming from the same funding source. So in order, I think, to eliminate that fatigue, to have that open communication within agencies, it's not a competition. We're here really to support our providers. And so to really work together and create a network for them is important. And then, yeah, like Monique said, bolstering the providers themselves as a strong voice for advocating for themselves, and helping them understand that pathway for change is big.
Okay, Louise, real
What I
quick.
would say, Patty, as a final remark is that I think that shared services is a win-win for everyone. So we've been talking right now mostly about providers and how shared services can really help put providers in the driver's seat, empower them with data, empower them with information and what they need to move forward. 100% correct. But shared services also benefits a shared services framework, state governments. So if you actually talk to the folks in Iowa inside the payment unit, I mean, I interviewed people inside the payment unit, and they basically said to me, our error rates are going down now that providers are using technology. That means it saves them time with the federal government, right? More and more as providers begin to start using more consistent ways of doing things, and as states begin to understand that they can start using technology to verify things that were taking them hours and hours and hours processing paper. So we're just about to come out with a new paper, actually, by one of the members of our team, that's talking about the technology transformation from the perspective of state administrators and how they can think about technology transformation as a win for them. So we haven't talked about that a lot in this session. It wasn't the purpose, but I just want to really underscore that there's lots of layers to this work.
Thank you all for help sharing your knowledge, and we will continue this next time, and Sarah will tell us about that in our last couple slides before we end.
Yeah, so here is a variety of resources and links to all of our speakers and the work that they are doing. We will be sending out all of this information to you all. So you can click on the links because clearly you can't do that here. But yeah, so we have one more of these sessions and it will be, I think
Next slide, there we go.
one more of these sessions. It'll be next Monday, same time. And we will be hearing from Kids Win Missouri as well as Child Care Aware and then Opportunities Exchange to really think about some of the things that Missouri already has and how we can potentially start there and leverage them into a greater shared service environment across the state. And so we are excited to have these speakers next time. I've put a evaluation in the chat. So please complete the evaluation so we know how this session went and any ideas for future sessions. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yes, thank you all again. We're done a little early because I looked at the clock wrong, but we had a great amount of good information, and we will be sending out the recording, and tell your friends to tune in next time. Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.